Okay. Evening, everybody. Nice to see you, and hope you've all had a wonderful summer. It sort of feels like that's quite a long time ago already, doesn't it? But here we are, and with this extra governance meeting. So I will work through the preamble and the script, and then we'll get on with it. Okay, but nice to see you. So thanks for attending this meeting of the Governance Committee on Tuesday, 9th September. My name's Councillor Ian Watkinson, and I'm the chair of this committee. Before we start this evening, I would just like to outline some housekeeping rules. There are no planned fire alarms, so if it does sound, please leave via the emergency exits. And can I request that all mobile phones are kept on silent or switched off? Thank you. Members of the committee are attending in person here at the Civic Centre. Other members of council may also dial into the meeting via Teams to observe and participate in the meeting. Please do note that the meeting is live streamed on YouTube, and the web link for this can be found on the council's website, and I think it's in the papers as well. Members on Teams are asked to keep their microphones on mute and only unmute when they wish to speak. And could I remind members to mute themselves once they've finished speaking to enable the meeting to proceed smoothly. So that's the preamble. So before we start, may we have introductions around the room, please? And if we just work round, it's fine if it's councillors and officers rather than splitting you up. So we'll start with our independent member. We'll start with that. Yeah, go on, Stuart.
Stuart Flynn, independent member.
Councillor Margaret Smith, representing New Longton and Hutton East.
David Shaw, representing Howick Priory in Penwortham.
Claire Gornall, Democratic Services Officer.
Sarah Bullock, Deputy Chief Executive.
Howard Norris, Interim Monitoring Officer.
Councillor Damien Bretherton, representing Walton Liddale West.
Councillor James Gleeson, Count Green Gregson Lane.
Councillor Emma Stevens, Bamber East.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't think we need to do introductions from visiting members in the audience or online, but I think we do have some guests online, and we've been through the procedure with you guys. So off to the meet. We'll get started. So item number 1, apologies, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Craig Ainsworth, independent member, and Councillor Peter Gabbett.
Okay, thanks very much. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any interest to declare? No, they don't. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 3, the minutes of the last meeting held on 22nd of July. So this item can be found starting on page 3 of the main agenda. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes from 22nd of July? Councillor Smith.
I'm quite happy to propose these minutes, Mr. Chairman. I just make a comment that I hope that the work of the leisure that we're hoping to get back will come back pretty quickly to us, because I do think it's very important on the health and safety aspect. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, and thanks very much for that proposal. Can we have a seconder, please? Seconded by Councillor Stevens. All those in favour? Okay, that's agreed unanimously. Moving on to item number 4, the South Rural Constituent, I can't say it today, Constitution Review. So you've had this information in the packet. Advised the item can be found on page 3 of the supplementary agenda, actually. And Sarah is going to talk us through this item, and we have put through, and you'll have had access to this, a PowerPoint to sort of help with this, where I know there's been so much work done in different working groups and other different groups to feed into this, but Sarah's going to lead us through it. And the suggestion is that we take each area as an item for discussion one at a time. So over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously the report tonight and the purpose of this meeting this evening is to consider the updated version of our South Ribble. Is that better, Councillor Smith?
I'll just try to switch. You can hear me all right? Is it just, it's just Sarah's microphone, is it? Yeah. Oh, come on. Well, whatever I say next will be wrong, so I won't say anything.
Is that any better? I should try a different microphone. No. Oh. Is that one better? Oh, that one sounds louder. Yeah.
There we go.
I've never been told I'm too quiet before. So that's good. So as I was saying, the Constitution is obviously our key public document that governs how the council operates, how we do our business, how we make decisions. This particular report is obviously the outcome of some significant work over the last couple of years, started by our previous monitoring officer that I've over the last few months picked up to bring forward to you this evening. We are required to keep the Constitution under regular review. It should be a dynamic document that can be amended as things change. It's not meant to be something that's sort of set in stone forever. It flexes and works as the work of the council changes. So we've had a covering report, but I've also picked out into a PowerPoint to go over what I think may be the key areas of debate this evening in terms of the Constitution. We have that on the screen, please. So it starts off with the purpose, why have we reviewed the Constitution? The last full review of the Constitution was actually in 2021, so coming up to 4 years ago now. Obviously, since that time, we've had the expansion of shared services arrangements with Chorley Council, which have influenced some areas of the Constitution. We've had a series of staffing changes, most notably a new chief executive appointed in 2023. Myself and other members of the senior leadership team start in 2024. So obviously, it's general tidying up and updating to reflect the current situation. Also reflection on the members' side as well. For example, changes to cabinet portfolios and roles of responsibilities. There's also been a series of new legislation and responsibilities that we've reflected in the Constitution. So is it possible to move it on, please? Sorry. Thank you. That's the right one. Most notably, the Procurement Act 2023 has impacted on the Constitution, and a number of other changes to procedures and other bits of national statutory responsibilities. There's also been digital transformation, and what I mean by that is our existing version of the Constitution, the 2021 version, had requirements in it that, for example, when a new member is elected to council, that the chief executive present them with a paper copy of the Constitution. It also says about members of the public being able to access printed copies of the Constitution. Obviously, as the digital world expands, the default position for the Constitution is an online version. So member induction covers the online version of the Constitution. We have now our terminals within the Customer Contact Centre where a member of the public can be shown how to access the Constitution online. So those requirements in the Constitution have been updated. And also because of market changes, primarily what I mean about that is cost of living, costs of goods and services. So some of the cost references in the Constitution have been uplifted, and that's particularly in relation to our financial regulations and the contract procedure rules. So I'll go into that in a little more detail in a moment. So in terms of the actual principles of the review, you'll have agreed this during your time reviewing the Constitution. Simplification, obviously Constitution is by its nature a fairly complex document. As far as possible, we do try and put the information into as plain English as we can for some quite complex and technical areas. And to make the presentation of the document as logical as possible so it follows a clear order. And we try not to repeat information in the document. So there's a lot about simplification. Also about making our processes efficient as possible. Sometimes there are aspects of the constitutional that we rarely use, but when it comes across that we use them in the business of the council, we identify improvements that should be made or where a process could be made more efficient. So they're picked up within the document. Decisions and effectiveness, making sure people are making the right decisions in the right format at the right time. Transparency, we aim to be as open and transparent as possible with our residents about the work we do and how that we do it. And accessibility, and I know this was particularly mentioned when I reviewed the minutes of your working groups that you'd had on the Constitution. I could see that members had raised some concerns about did the Constitution enable a fair and equitable conduct, considering things like the Equalities Act. So there've been a couple of amendments in that regard. So the 5 issues that I thought perhaps would be most significant changes within the Constitution that I've pulled out in this presentation today are the ordering and presentation of the document, discharge of functions, the key decision level, which we are proposing to uplift, officer decision making, and possibly some of the most significant changes are within that 5th and final section on terms of references of committee and their operating procedures. In terms of the ordering and presentation, we've put the Constitution into 3 parts. So this is just repeating that sort of contents page for you. So looking at the purpose of the Constitution initially in terms of the introduction, those roles and responsibilities, the members and officers code of conduct and rules around our working relations, and the rights and responsibilities of our citizens. Part 2 is then about responsibilities for functions and decision making, our joint arrangements in conjunction with Chorley Council and that updated officer management structure that I referred to earlier. And part 3 is all of our procedure rules, so particularly council procedure rules and the financial regulations.
Should we take some of those questions?
So in terms of, that just first.
Yeah, so just on that first section, thanks for that introduction, Sarah. Is there any questions or comments just on that point 1, ordering and presentation? Councillor Smith?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, sir. I'm wondering whether this particular area is actually from the LGA or whether it is ours. This has been the LGA adapted, because I'm just thinking that on 2.4, it says, however, you do not need to register gifts and hospitality which are not related to your role as a councillor, such as Christmas gifts from your friends and family. I do find that a little bit condescending. I don't think it's necessary. Surely we're all intelligent people and we should know that you don't have to register your Christmas gifts. That was point 1. Also, could I say that throughout this code of conduct document, the spacing is pretty bad. It needs to be gone through again. Pages 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 30, 33. There's all examples on there where the spaces are missed. And I think what it is, they all seem to be on the left-hand side. They all seem to be on the left-hand side, as if the word from the preceding line has merged somehow onto the following line. So this document needs to be looked at properly. You just have to bear with me a moment while I find my next page. On page 57, under the section non-compliance, could you actually tell me whether I'm right or not, but whether it says the member's conduct can be held accountable to the governance committee? Should that be the governance committee or the standards committee? And it also comes up again on page 61, the same thing, governance committee via the monitoring officer. And I'm wondering whether that should be the standards committee.
Yeah, in relation to all things concerning the code of conduct, it's a standards committee. So that's clearly a typographic error which will have to be adjusted.
Thank you,
Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
Yeah, in terms of your point regarding the Christmas gift, and I think it's where the governance committee has emerged from rather than a typographical error, it's because we have adopted the model procedure from the LGA, which is obviously within our gift to amend. So in terms of Christmas gifts, you know, if we feel that is common sense and we don't have to clarify that type of gift, you know, we can simply remove that from the document if that helps.
It's just my thinking, Mr. Chairman. It's entirely up to the committee, but it does seem a bit over the top.
Okay, thanks for that suggestion. Anybody else on that particular point? And thanks for clarifying that. And we'll put that right about standards, not governance. Christmas gifts, in or out? Councillor Bradford.
Yeah, I think if we're accepting Christmas gifts from family members, we shouldn't need to declare that.
Everyone seems to be nodding on this. Oh, Councillor Gleeson.
I was just going to say, I'm sure there's a note in there somewhere. If you're ever in doubt, just consult with one of the monitoring officers. And it just clears it up, really, doesn't it? So.
Okay, thank you. So I think anything else on that first section?
The formatting point.
Yeah, the formatting. Yeah, we knew about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do apologise with the format. The document has a number of formatting errors, which was caused, was very difficult to work with because obviously the size of the document and our IT system struggled with it a little bit. So we were keen to get you the content so you could read it, but Claire and her colleagues have been working very diligently the last couple of days. We do know issues with spacing. Some of the numbering you might see in the document we received was slightly out. So we apologise for that, and that is being rectified for council. Anything around the formatting the document.
Councillor Brotherton.
Yes, just going back to the situation about gifts. There's two figures mentioned throughout the document. One is we report gifts of a certain value, which is £50, but then further along it mentions £30. So do we? Is that an error, or should it be 50 or 30, or should it be both 50?
Yes, it used to be 25 and it was uplifted to 50, and it should be 50 for all purposes.
Yes, okay. So you probably noticed on page 170 it says £30. Page 31, for example, says 50. So maybe we just need to clarify that. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that one. Anything else on that first sector, Councillor Shaw?
Just while we're doing the messing about with formatting and things, if we have such points that we want to make sure Claire's included in these things, can we just send an email to Claire and try and get them sorted? Because I've got about 3 or 4 that I'd really get stressed about.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else on the detail? I've forgotten how to address it. Mr. Flynn, Stewart. Yeah.
Is this a moment to obviously to ask about the certain details within the document itself, or
Just in the section, we're going to deal with it section by section,
Okay.
so we're just looking at
No
ordering
problem.
and presentation.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Anything else on that first section from anybody not on the committee? Great. We'll move on. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you. So the second area, the key area that we've updated is with regard to discharge of functions. There's a table in there of the local choice functions. These have generally been updated in line with legislation. Tends to be around property services, our planning functions. So it's just the references have changed slightly, and we've had a removal of some legislation which no longer exists. We've just referenced, we've updated the local government associations model code of conduct. Obviously, I've noted the change that we've proposed to that. The main changes that the LGA put to their document were relating to advances in technology, as we've done with our whole constitution, things like changes to legislation, but also the use of social media by members and officers is referenced. Obviously in South Ribble we also have our social media policy that's been through council before. In terms of delegation to officers, chief officers, which have been redefined in the constitution as members of the senior management team, and an updated structure is being provided, can make any executive decision within their responsibilities unless it is a key decision. And we've got in section 3 the updates proposed to the key decision level, or the cabinet member has directed them not to make such a decision. So that is a point that has been clarified in this updated version of the constitution. We've always had, if it's a key decision, it goes forward to cabinet, and if it's not a key decision, it can be an officer delegation. But we've just clarified that a cabinet member has the right to say, actually, I want this matter scrutinised in a public committee rather than being an officer decision. That's the change to that particular point. Discharge of function.
Okay, thanks for that. So on discharge of functions, and just before we get to that, I've just noticed that Councillor Jackson's arrived, and hot-footed over, Councillor Gabbett wasn't able to make it, and I know that Councillor Jackson is down as a substitute. So if you want to come and join us, Councillor Jackson, thank you. Great. So just on this particular section, discharge of functions, it's over to the committee for questions or comments, just on this section, if we can. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Smith, sorry, your light didn't come on. Margaret, it's all right.
Page 76. Committees. The last line of the first paragraph, I think that should read relevant to South Ribble, not relevant to Chorley.
Yeah, we got that. It says Chorley at the end of the last paragraph. Yeah. Okay. Anything, Councillor Smith, back to you.
All right, to continue.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, thank you. Right, page 87. At the bottom of the page, we've got chair and vice chair. And it says both councillors and co-opted members serving on the committee are eligible for appointment to the office of chair and vice chair. Where the chair of the committee is a councillor, the vice chair will be appointed from among the co-opted members. And where the chair is one of the co-opted members, the vice chair shall be the councillor. I don't recall, in all the times that we have been discussing this constitution, and it has been going on for some time now, and I haven't missed any of the meetings, I've ever seen this before, put before us, And I just wonder where it's come from, because over a number of years now, I have been advocating that there should be a member of the opposition as the vice chair, as was normal before the Labour administration took over. The other two scrutiny committees have a variation, so I don't know why this committee doesn't. And it seems strange that it's suddenly come out of nowhere, and we've got the co-opted member as either the chair or the vice chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for pointing that out. Anybody else on that particular issue or those issues from Councillor Smith? No? Okay. Anything else on this section? So I think what we'll probably do is that we'll run through each of these sections and have the discussion and debate. Because I suspect that if we make decisions and vote on each section, then a later decision might interfere with one of the early ones. So we'll vote on everything at the end. Okay. What does that take us up to? So, anything else on that particular section from members on the committee? Councillor Brotherton.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just regarding the General Licensing Subcommittee.
We're not up to that bit yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I've just been told we're not. Okay.
Sorry, committee.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so anything else on this particular section, which has gone off the screen in front of? No? Yes, Councillor Smith?
In somewhere in this, I think you referred to it that Claire and her team are working very hard, but sometimes there's a reference to a number and the number isn't there. So if those could be checked, because sometimes it says 22 and 23 and 23, don't they? You can't find it. So I'm sure that you will be going through it with a fine-tooth comb. Thank you.
We did spot them.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. Okay, so I think that takes us on to the third section of the PowerPoint and the pack, key decision level.
So one change that we're proposing, say, is an uplift of the key decision level. In the current constitution, a decision is counted as a key decision if it has the financial threshold of £100,000. We're proposing that it's uplifted to £180,000. And obviously, we say that a decision is key also if it affects 2 or more wards. So there's a formatting change in terms of committee reports, which gives people the option to say all wards rather than. But the financial one, the reason for the 180, we haven't just sort of plucked that figure out of nowhere. That is to align with, as I mentioned before, the new Procurement Act and then the council rules along that. 180,000 is the threshold now where we would go out for a full competitive procurement. So it's to align our contract procedure rules, our new suggested financial regulations and the Constitution. So it makes it a lot simpler and clearer for everybody if that level is the same across those 3 functions. It is an area as well that Chorley have recently adopted in the review of their constitution. So obviously in terms of shared services and getting the benefits of joint procurements, it is helpful if the levels are aligned across the 2 authorities as well. So that is the main change in terms of key decision level. 2 or more wards and a financial threshold of 180,000. I should add, I've just put a point of clarity there. Obviously, decisions between 100,000 and 180 are quite a significant financial amount. So the proposal is that wouldn't be delegated to officers. It would be executive member, cabinet member decision for decisions of that threshold.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so questions or comments on this key decision level aspect or point? Members on the committee? Councillor Shaw?
Just to say thank you for explaining that. I was wondering why the sudden leap, and if it's aligned with Chorley, it makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, anybody not on the committee on this point? No? Great, we'll move on. So on to officer decision making, item 4 in the PowerPoint.
In terms of officer decision making, there hasn't been one consistent system used to document officer decisions, but we want a clear audit trail and something that's open and transparent. So the proposal is we use the Modern Gov system that we use in the council anyway, that officer decisions would be documented and published where appropriate using that system. So we have consistent for officer and member decisions. I mentioned before cabinet members looking at the decisions between 100,000 and 180. Obviously decisions lower than that is that officers would be able to make the decisions on the 50 to 100,000 threshold, or there is an alternative that the cabinet member of that portfolio could intervene and say, we'll select, we think it's appropriate for the cabinet member to make the decision, if it's a particularly sensitive matter, for example. And as I mentioned before, this is the section on officers where we've mentioned the senior leadership team and which posts within the council are designated as chief officers. The chief officers are the directors of the council together with myself and the chief executive.
Thanks very much for that. Any questions, comments or points on that section? Seems pretty straightforward. Nope. Great. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. It would be helpful that we obviously try to follow this document, and it's quite a comprehensive document. If you could refer to pages so we could find out where you're up to with the various things, that would be just helpful to follow. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll do our best with that. All right. Well, that takes us on to part 5 of the presentation. That's why we've got such a big audience, isn't it? Really. Let's cut to the chase. We're getting there. So part 5, and there's a few different aspects to this, and we'll cover them one at a time. Over to you, Sarah.
Councillor Smith, I'll try my best. For this next point, requirement to stand, I do have that one, page 192 of the pack. Is that one? Oh, no, sorry, it's paragraph 19.5 in the document. The standing. Yeah. Just let me try and find. 1 second. I'll just try and find it for you again. 19.5. What's that? You know this one, Claire. Requirement to stand. Oh, 184 is it? Oh, there, I found it. Yeah, page 1. Thank you. Page 184 of the agenda pack. Page 173 if you're looking at the smaller constitution document number. So this issue has come up in council and committee that. Why did we have the requirement to stand in our current 2021 constitution? And the reason for requirement to stand historically was to identify who was speaking at a meeting, and so members would listen and pay attention and recognise who was addressing the meeting. Obviously, with modern technology now, we have microphones when they work. We also have screens around the room. The screens have the member's name across the bottom. So there are lots of ways using technology where it is apparent and obvious which member is addressing the meeting at any one time. The other issue that has been raised is obviously our duties in terms of the Equalities Act 2010, mindful that people may have health conditions or impairments that may physically prevent them from either temporarily or permanently being able to stand or stand for some considerable periods to address a meeting. So the proposal in the version of the Constitution in front of you is to relax that requirement and say you may stand to address the mayor, but it wouldn't be a necessity to do so. Okay.
I'll start with members on the committee first. on this particular point? Councillor Shaw.
So just trying to think my way around this. My understanding was that I would stand because I'm if I address the council, it is through the mayor. Are we in danger of having a two-tier system if we say you can make your own mind about this, but there are some that will have difficulty? I don't want to isolate somebody in that way. Is it better to have a rule rather than an option? I don't know. I leave it to others to decide, but I've suddenly become a bit nervous about my preference for standing somehow.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before I go on to that, could you just clarify something for me as regards substitutes? Because on page 21, it says it is not possible to substitute for part of a meeting. And I'm just wondering about Councillor Jackson, who's come in after the meeting has started.
What does it say about lateness, I think, rather than substituting it? I think I can see the point that you're saying if somebody's swapped.
I'm just wanting to make sure that we are right.
Yeah, but I think if somebody's late to arrive, but we'll get some advice on that.
Right, well, that's fine. I've got the... While you're looking at that... I think there's some wording. There's some wording about the standing as regards the mayor. It's on page 184, and it says, when a member speaks at council, it will generally stand and address the meeting through the mayor. The requirement to stand shall not apply to any member who finds it difficult or impossible to do so as a result of disability or infirmity. And that seems to me, it's only small, but it seems much better than the other one because it's just easier. It's just a thought that you may look at that and compare the two if you're thinking of if we're going forward with this.
Oh no, it's back. Hooray. There we go. Anything else on just this particular point about the standing from anybody else on the committee? Because I have a comment, but I'll take it round first. No, I can't see that anything lit. I'll just wave at me. Councillor Jackson. Yeah.
I'd just like to say on my behalf, at the point that you raised, Councillor Smith, I decided to attend my substantive committee first, and then I've come directly onto this one. Okay?
Not disputing where you've been or anything like that. I'm just making sure that we're right. Before if we have to do any voting, we wouldn't like anything to fall out. I'm not getting at you.
No, but I'm just
checking
it's making it clear I wasn't late to attend this meeting.
No, I understand that. As regards standing for the mayor, I always understood it wasn't necessarily to do with actually identifying who you were, because you don't stand up and say, I'm Councillor Smith and I'm going to now say something. It was in respect to the mayor's position that we stand and address, as they do in Parliament. You stand and address somebody to give them that kudos, if you will. I'm fairly relaxed about it. I realise some people will have difficulty standing, but I do think in the majority of cases, I think it would be best if people did stand and observe the protocol that we already have.
Thank you. So, members not on the committee first. Yep. So we'll have Councillor Howarth and then Councillor Tomlinson, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on that point of standing or sitting down. I fully understand why we would want to change it so members can sit down, because there are people who would have a problem in standing. But I think what we may be losing here is the authority of the mayor. So we need something in the Constitution Because at the moment, if the mayor stands, everybody else sits down and stops speaking. If everybody's sitting down anyway, where's the authority of the mayor to stop somebody speaking when they may well be completely out of order?
Okay, thanks for that comment. And Councillor Tomlinson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm quite content for people to stay sitting if that's the preference. I do have a little bit of an issue with the wording of 19.5 that says I'm quite happy with they will generally stand and address the meeting through the mayor. That's fine. It's the bit after that says if they find it difficult or impossible to do so, they may sit down, which kind of asks someone to identify themselves as being disabled, when actually I think it should be just their own preference. And so we shouldn't say, oh, you're sitting down, you're obviously disabled, because that's what it says in the Constitution. I would simply prefer the Constitution to say people will generally stand. And I'd just prefer to stand if I'm speaking to a room of 49 other people. But I think if people choose not to stand with modern technology that was described before, then that should be absolutely their right.
Thank you. Anybody else on this particular point? No. Okay. So, and this is something that we discussed before, and I discussed it with Sarah before, and I think the point that you just made there, Councillor Tomlinson, was the one that I was going to make. And as somebody who has, those of you who remember where I have sat down, and I do sat down from time to time, and I'm not going to explain why, and I don't think anybody else should have to explain why. So I don't think we should ever have a situation where somebody potentially feels uncomfortable. With me, it was fine, no problem, but other people maybe not. So I think how we word it is really important. Take your point, Councillor Howarth, about the procedure and protocol and how the mayor can quieten somebody down that needs quietening down. But I think that's separate to this. So I think choice and that option and being clear about that so that nobody feels uncomfortable, whether they're standing or sitting, is an important one. Councillor Smith?
I think that's quite right. We don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable. And I think wording it carefully would go a long way to making sure that it was in the Constitution. And maybe we could have, if you could look at it again and come up with the wording, and we could have a look at it and we could all agree it'd probably be the best way forward.
Councillor Gleeson?
Can we not just state that the preference is to stand, but it's not a requirement? Just straightforward and simple.
It's back to that choice of words. Preference implies that you should be doing, and you might not be able to. So I think we just need to have a close look at the words. Close look at the words, and if necessary, bring it back. I think everybody's on the same page. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable if they want to sit or stand. It's absolutely nothing to do with respect for the mayor. So can we take that away and look at it? Just that wording, get that wording right. That would be my suggestion. Okay, so we're on the first bullet point of section 5, and we're going to move on to the next one.
Thank you, Chair. The next section is the slide, which is 3 out of 9 of the terms of reference. And this is basically around this committee. And the proposal is to amend the name of the committee to the Audit and Governance Committee, rather than purely the Governance Committee. This is a recommendation of SIPFA to acknowledge formally combining the functions of overseeing finance processes and operational audit processes. Move the slides on. Thank you. Claire is trying to move the slide on. It's not playing. And it's about that, showing that more comprehensive approach to accountability, risk management and ethical conduct. And from my understanding of how this committee has operated, it has looked at a significant amount of audit functions within the committee. We've also looked at this reviewing our neighbouring councils across Lancashire, The majority do call it an audit and governance committee. The one exception I found to this is at Lancashire County Council, where they have an additional wording of risk. So they call it an audit, risk and governance committee. I think personally we feel risk is covered within audit and within governance, but the suggestion and the proposal today is that we go for audit and governance committee.
Thanks very much for that. Is everyone okay with that one? Any comments on that? No? Great. Okay. Move on. Thank you.
So the next area is around the planning committee, and I think there's been quite a number of conversations and some differing views I've picked on up from reviewing various minutes of members of the governance committee, and the planning chair has made some commentary as well. So the suggested proposal is that planning committee be consisted of 10 members. All members must have undertaken mandatory training prior to serving on the committee. At least 5 working days before the committee, those with the right to make a request to speak will be informed of their opportunity that they can come and present at planning committee. Any members of the public would contact Democratic Services by 12 noon, 2 working days prior to the committee. And the changes to members of the public that wish to speak both against the application and then for the application to be amended to 3 members of the public, and each have up to 3 minutes to state their case. There was also, I picked up from the notes, some debate around councillors for the ward councillors where the application is located. The proposal is that councillors for the ward in which the application is located can make representations, and they too will have up to 3 minutes each to present their case. The applicant or agent will be the final speaker at planning committee. And the exception, I think there was some debate, for example, around councillors from neighbouring wards, not just the one it's located. So there is a discretional clause in there that the chair of planning committee has the discretion to vary any of the rules as deemed appropriate. So that would apply to neighbouring ward councils. It would also apply if, for example, the chair found it appropriate for an additional member of the public, for example, or to allow additional time for any member speaking at the committee to speak. Okay, and apologies, this is it, page 192 of the pack, page 181 in the small numbers of the Constitution. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Shaw.
Just the way you were running through that, it suddenly occurred to me. Yes, Caleb would have the option of varying the conditions, but what you're effectively saying is that the local members have as much speaking time as members of the public. In our case, because we've got 3-member ward, and if we all came out and packed it out, we'd end up with members of the public, whichever way they were wanting us to, and potentially 3 of us, whereas another ward might only have 2. That seems a bit odd to me, but that's not to say that anybody would actually turn out in full force, but it's a strange anomaly. I know Caleb would just say no, but fair enough.
Okay, thanks for that. Other members of the committee on this particular point on the planning committee proposals? Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're quite right. In the working groups, there was a lot of discussion about this, an awful lot of discussion, and it went on, and various recommendations were put forward. I don't agree with bringing down the amount of residents that are allowed to speak to 3 from 5. I've been to an awful lot of planning committees in my time where I've come along with residents. And before we ever come to a planning committee, there has been usually a number of meetings with residents to tell them the protocol, to tell them how to put over their case, and particularly when it is a particularly contentious issue. It's not often that the committee is overwhelmed by 5. It is when it is a really special event, I would say, where there is a lot of feeling. To bring it down from 5 to 3 and the speaking time from 4 minutes to 3 minutes is taking an awful lot of time out of the residents. They feel that that is their one chance to actually put their point of view to the members of that committee. And they find it very satisfying in some ways that they have been able to do that. And to start restricting them, and particularly bringing down the time to 3 minutes. You can't say an awful lot in 3 minutes. I know I've tried. And I've often been told by the chairman that my time's up, and that's when we have 4 minutes. So it isn't easy for them to compress it. So I don't agree with bringing it down to 3 minutes. And if you work it out, you're taking the time from, say, the objectors from 20 minutes to 9 minutes, which is 11 minutes. There's a lot of things you can get through in 11 minutes. So I don't agree with that. I have come round to the idea that residents should register. I think that is helpful to the committee and to the clerks so that they know that there is a certain amount of people who wish to put their points of view. So there are some good issues in here, which I agree with, but certainly the timing, I think, if I could say that over the many, many years that South Ribble has been in existence, one of the things that has been, I think, foremost at the front of it is the openness and the way we have allowed our residents to come to this council, be it either at council meetings or planning. But planning is the one thing that really is dominant in a lot of people's heads. A lot of things it gets them really wound up. And therefore, the fact that they're allowed to come and voice their frustration sometimes is a really good thing as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think we should diminish it in any way. There's another thing that I'm just a little bit concerned about. On this page 192, it's the second paragraph down. It says at least 5 working days before the planning committee is to meet, all those with a right to make a request to speak will be informed of their opportunity to do so by the council. Fine. How do you know who they are? Where do you get them from? I can assume you have got the agent and the applicant and some of the object, but there could be loads more. We've got to be very careful we don't select to and put other people off. I think that's about it at the moment, but I'm certainly very much against 3 minute. I think we should leave it at 4. It used to be 5. So we've come down to 4. We've knocked the minute off. Thank you.
Thanks very much for those comments, Councillor Basin.
How does this bring us in line with Chorley and LCC, or are we now not in line with them anymore? And is this just how do we stand with them? It's curiosity.
Oh, thank you. Order of the meeting. Thanks very much. There's a question. So it's a question about what other councils are doing.
Yeah.
Howard, perhaps you can help with that. We had a discussion about this earlier.
I think it's a bit of a movable feast, but so many places have reduced to 3 minutes. But of course, that's only anecdotal. It's up to you as a council to decide what you think is the appropriate amount. But there are instances of 3 minutes.
We did a big survey at one time, and it went round all the councils in Lancashire, and there was such a mishmash. There wasn't a consistency anywhere at all. Some didn't allow anybody to speak at all, which is pretty terrible as far as I'm concerned, but there you are.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
Is there clarity regarding the questions on which ones are chosen, and what's the process for the questions that are chosen for the for the 30 minutes?
Thanks for that question. So I don't know if Howard or Sarah want to deal with that.
Can you just clarify, is this in relation to planning committee?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Understand.
Yeah, I think it's questions.
We'll come to that shortly.
Wait a minute.
Anybody else on the committee on this planning committee proposals? The planning committee proposal. I know there are people that are not on the committee who are waiting to come in, so just make sure we cover this first. And it might be that we come back depending on what's said out there. So I think Councillor Howarth, were you chomping a bit on this one? Yeah, and Councillor Green behind you had indicated, and also Councillor Michael Green had indicated as well. So. Best of order.
Well, I was rather hoping to speak to the whole thing because I think they're all intertwined anyway. But I completely agree with everything Councillor Smith has said. Look out that window. People out there have lost faith in governments at all levels, any level of governance. And for us to try and reduce their opportunity to actually have a voice in this council, and planning is very emotive, and everything's stacked against objectors when it comes to planning legislation anyway. There's very little you can object to that are material planning considerations. To try and reduce the number of speakers and reduce the amount of time they have, I think is retrograde. It gives the impression that we don't want to hear what they have to say, and if they do come to a planning committee, they should be leaving in the view that they've had a fair hearing. And the more you reduce the number of people able to speak and the length of time they're able to speak for, is just going against that completely, I think. And it may well be that other councils do this, but we're supposed to be the exemplary council. So maybe other councils should be looking at our practices and what we do right, which I think this is, or as it exists now, rather than us having the race to the bottom to just follow poor practices from other councils.
Thanks for those that point of view, Councillor Howarth. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the opportunity tonight to speak. As a long-standing member of the Planning Committee, probably about 17 years, I find that any information we can get could be a great big help in us with our decisions. And that's why I'm speaking on behalf of a member of the Planning Committee. As you well know, although we read reports, although we do site visits, you're not allowed to predetermine your decision before the meeting, legally. So what happens at the meeting is very, very crucial as to the information that you receive to help shape your decision on that application, and also what the officers say, of course. I've found over the years that some members are very articulate from the public, some aren't very articulate, some are very shy, some are very frightened of coming to speak in public. It's a facing for them. And 3 minutes would literally take some of them to read less than half a page of what they brought written down to get across to the committee. Never mind add on their own feelings at the end of the written speech. Often their own feelings is very emotional, and it comes across to you and it helps in your decision in saying, is this application good for the residents or is it not? And of course, going along with your planning rules, you can't always be determined that way, but it all helps. It all forms an information that you can do your decision on. Now, 5 for 4 minutes is already limiting, very limiting. 3 minutes for 3 people especially if it's an important and crucial application, is just literally the tip of the iceberg. You're not going to find out the deep feelings of the residents in that period of time. So it's very stunting and it's very difficult for the planning members to make just decisions. So I absolutely concur with what's been previously said, and I'd like to put my thoughts forward for good consideration from the committee to see what you could do to help the residents and also help the planning committee members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michael Green.
Thank you, Chairman. Going to first of all thank you and all your colleagues on the committee for undertaking this extensive piece of work, which should be appreciated by all 50 councillors. It's never easy to review a constitution, and particular thanks to Sarah for presenting it so well this evening and for all the work that's been done on this. Turning to planning committee, look, in my time as a councillor, the planning committee is probably the most contentious committee from the point of view as a member of the public. It's the most important in some ways. I know all the committees do some great work, but planning directly has an impact upon people's quality of life in so many ways. And I think people feel aggrieved, not always by the decision. Sometimes they accept it when the decision goes against them, but they accept it if they believe they've had the full opportunity to put a case forward. And for that reason, I don't want to repeat all the points that have been ably made by Councillor Mrs Smith, Councillor Howarth, Councillor Mrs Green, etc. I wholeheartedly agree. I do not think we should reduce the overall time for public participation from 20 minutes down to 9. In the greater scheme of things, how much time will we shave off a planning committee meeting? 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Not the biggest changer, and I think it's important to get those views across at those meetings, and let's listen to people properly and give people the right to give their views, air their views, and give a different perspective, that local perspective, which can be so important to members who are determining decisions. The other point I want to make about this is a point about the right of elected members to speak. And currently, I think I'm right in saying it's part of the Constitution that we can speak on a matter which falls within our ward, but also falls within a neighbouring ward if it has an impact. Most applications that are in one ward do have an impact upon the neighbouring ward, and I think that right should remain in the Constitution. I think that's really important as elected members. We don't stand here as Michael Green or Phil Smith or whatever when we come to a committee meeting. We represent X number of thousand residents, depending on the size of the ward. And I think that's really important that we're given the opportunity to speak fully on behalf of those residents. And the other point I want to raise is something which isn't explicitly included in the Constitution now, but I do think should be, and that's the right of all elected members, not just borough councillors, to speak. So as we currently stand, if you're so minded, you could stop either of the two MPs if they wanted to attend the planning committee. You could stop either Mrs Ellis or Mr Foster from actually speaking on behalf of the community that they are elected to serve. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong that you stop county councillors from speaking. I think they should be allowed to if it's in an area that they represent, and I think that should also automatically be true for town and parish councillors. You know, we might not like the politics, if I get big politics into it, of the MPs or the county councillors at the moment, but that's irrelevant. They are elected to serve their communities, and representing them is a clear part of what they have been elected to do. So I think that's wrong, and I think that should be looked at again, if you could consider that, please. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Councillor Green. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'll try not to go over things that have already been said, but just to say that I do not support what is written in the document here this evening at all with regard to planning. I find the 5 working days prior to the meeting is very, very difficult, as in the agenda only goes out 7 days. So somebody's got 2 days to read something and then try to contact the council So where are they going to contact the council after 7 days when the council are going to confirm whether they speak after 5 days? I find that very, very difficult. But and then with regard to the number of people to speak, I mean, I've been on the planning committee quite a few years. I've probably attended every planning committee for 20 years because it's been a real sort of interest of mine over that period of time. And 3 minutes is far too short. It will create more trouble than it's actually worth. I don't know whether somebody's trying to make a point with this, but the point is badly made. It's badly made for the community. It's badly made for the residents. 5 minutes, as far as I can see, is probably manageable. I mean, we're going to planning committee after planning committee. Residents have quite a bit to say, and I know we need to try and keep to the point, which is what I'm trying to do here, but 5 minutes is really, really important. I suppose, it went down from 5 residents that could speak for 5 minutes, and it's gone to 5 to 4 minutes, and now we're on 3 to 3 minutes. What are we trying to do as a council? What are we trying to do? Completely suppress everything that goes on, and I think it's just appalling, to be quite honest. So that being said, that just the paragraph on the top of page 9193, which says no paperwork, plans, photographs will be allowed to be circulated by the applicant and agent and member of the public at any meeting of the planning committee. That's something that's relatively new in the sense that members of the public and agents have been able to circulate information to the planning committee, providing they've shared it to each other, as in the applicant shared it with the residents are shared with the applicant, and therefore everybody is talking off the same hymn sheet. And I think that's providing they're not handing stuff round at the meeting, which is something that I think we now approve of. If it's circulated before the meeting, or the applicant and the residents have given their permission for documents to be circulated, I think that would be a useful addition. I don't think of anything more to add. Oh, on page 191, which is the public presentations, it says at cabinet committees. So no, that's fine, Chairman. That's all I've got to say. I just don't support what is written here, and I don't think it's doing the council any justice whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor?
So I just want to say, actually, I want to put on record that some of these proposals in here are absolutely appalling. I've made no bones over the past few months of highlighting public trust in politics, and this doesn't go anywhere to try and alleviate these issues. I've looked at the corporate strategy for the council, and it says that our vision is to listen, engage and be responsive that makes the best use of its resources to enable every person and community to thrive in a vibrant, green and fair borough, and be an exemplary council that is open and transparent in its activities. How is reducing the time being able to speak to 3 minutes from 4 and 5 participants to 3 in keeping with those missions? I can see it for what it is, as I'm sure the public can, which is a threat to residents' representations and the democratic process. You can make your own mind up about that. What I do would like clarity on as well is if it says anybody eligible to speak will be contacted 5 working days beforehand. I'd like to ask the question, how will they be contacted? Because obviously it's not quite clear. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor Forshaw. And on how contacted, I'm not sure if that's something that you can answer right now, because a couple of people have mentioned it. Is that how would we normally do that?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. It's usually in the way they've contacted. So the ones that are invited are the ones that have had contact on that matter. So they tend to be people that have emailed in for points of clarification or debate to the planning team. So because they're on the planning team's register, they will either email or telephone them to inform them of a right. That's not to say anybody else can't apply to speak at the committee. It's the ones that have already been in contact around the case and they're aware of, they will tell them, right, this is now coming to committee and it's on this date.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Just a couple of points. On the point you're just making, that with just being 3 people allowed, that could just somebody else suddenly finds out about it and they ring up, sorry, the places are taken, which is another point. There's just a couple of things. The point that Councillor Smith made about the paperwork and photographs and things, I took this up with the previous monitoring officer, Mr. Moister, and he informed me that it actually wasn't relevant to planning committees. It was only relevant to large-scale developments, and that's where it was not allowed to bring the paperwork. And the paperwork was allowed to come to ordinary planning committees. That was the advice I was given previously. Also, on the previous constitution, we had a section regarding large-scale developments. I know most of those large-scale developments now, like Pickering, well, not Pickering's Farm because it hasn't started yet, but Heatherley have also now started to be developed. But they had different criteria as to who could speak and how long they could speak for. It isn't in this section. Do we now find that it is not necessary to have that? Or has it just slipped under the radar, basically? Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anything else on this bullet point that I think I'm going to suggest that we deal with this now before we take all the items bundled together at the end. Anything at all? So, if somebody on the committee wants to frame it as a proposal.
Yes,
and before you do that, Councillor Smith, all I will say, and in fact I'm going to come back to something you said right at the start, which was that there have been lots of working groups and these proposals are made on the back of the most recent working group recommendations, as far as I know. So I think in terms of working, let's just note that there was some, and the chair of the planning committee as well, and there was some pretty strong comments there, but that's what we're here for. So back to you for your proposal.
You're quite right, Mr. Chairman. There was a lot of discussion about it, and it did start out 3-3. It then went back to 5-4, and then it changed again. So I think the fact that you may have read the minutes, but there was a lot of toing and froing. And I think a lot of heart searching about it. So my proposal would be that we should allow 5 members of the public to speak, and they should be allowed to speak for 4 minutes. I'm content with the notification that people have got to give for their right to speak. I think that is fine if it's a resident. And I would like to have some confirmation about the photographs and the paperwork. But in the main, and also about the other sites. But the proposal is to give it 5 and 4. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much on that proposal. Any from the members on the committee, any amendments to that? Suggested amendments? No? Okay, in which case we will vote on this item. So just help me out with the wording again, Claire. Could you just want to repeat that back, just so we're clear? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So it was for 5 people to speak for 4 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so that's retaining the current position. Okay, so we're voting on this now. So committee members, all those in favour of that proposal, please. Say again. Hands up's fine. I think we can see you. Yep, thank you. So let's just say that again. Sorry, colleagues. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. That takes us on to the next bullet point, Sarah.
Where I am now. So the next one again is a updating and a rename the licensing committee to the Licensing and Public Safety Committee. This committee would be drawn from 10 members. The committee would be quorate when 4 of those members would be present. Again, a change to the training to make the training mandatory training that all Licensing and Public Safety Committee members must complete mandatory training before sitting on the committee. And 2 subcommittees of this. One is the licensing panel with 3 members taken from the Licensing and Public Safety Committee membership. And the second subcommittee, the General Licensing Subcommittee, which would be no more than 5 members, and they would be appointed on a politically proportional basis. So I think this is a more straightforward aspect of this committee term section.
Yeah, I'd hope so. I can just see that the screens haven't rolled over. I think colleagues are working on that, but hopefully members can see what you've just been referring to, or have read it already.
Just clarify something for me. Did you say that the 3 subcommittee will be proportionately, politically proportionate?
Oh, which one? The subcommittee would be politically proportionate. The General Licensing Subcommittee.
Councillor Smith?
The 3 subcommittee then is not politically proportionate. Is that what you're saying? I can't find it. I don't know what page it is. It doesn't say it is. It says that the members will be 3, provided that attempts have been made without success to identify a member who can substitute for the member who is not available, and the parties agree to a quorum of 3. But it doesn't say whether it's proportionate or not.
So in terms of the overall Licensing and Public Safety Committee, page 97 of the pack, 86 in the small numbers, is appointed by council. So it doesn't say politically proportionate, it just says appointed by council. So we could clarify that if that's appropriate to do so.
I think they're appointed by council, but they are proportionate. The licensing committee is politically proportionate, but surely all the subcommittees should be politically proportionate as well.
Yeah, the subcommittees are clarified in the paragraph there on page 97. Any subcommittee is appointed on a politically proportional basis. So I think that's assuming, but we could clarify for the main licensing and public safety. Yeah, it makes that assumption, but we could make it specific.
Okay, thanks for that point. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Chair. I always thought that the main committee of the licence committee was a non-political body. That's what I've been led to believe in the time that I've been on it. So that we definitely need it clarifying if that's not correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw?
Just thinking of the difference between a quasi-judicial but politically representative committee, which is the same as planning, I think, perhaps.
Okay. This is why we've got all these experts in the room. Yeah, it's been going on for a while. So, okay, so anything else on the Licensing and Public Safety Committee proposals from members on the committee? Councillor Gleeson.
Yeah, I just want to emphasise that we do regard the training as should be mandatory. There's a lot of changes go on, legal changes, all sorts of changes, and the only way we find out about them really is by having the training. So I just want to second that. I believe that training has to be mandatory.
Thank you. Anybody else on the committee? Anybody not on the committee? Okay, so we're content with those minor tweaks. Great. Okay, we'll move on to the next point, which is questions from members.
So we're referring to, in terms of questions from members, paragraph, particularly starting from paragraph 14.2, page 178 of the agenda pack, 167 in the small constitution numbers. So obviously, as is now, members can ask questions without notice on any report, any item under consideration from the council, cabinet or any other committee that the report's on the agenda for. The changes to ask questions on notice on any matter in which, in relation to which the council has powers or duties. In terms of the procedure around this, written notice of the question should be given to the chief executive, with our usual practice of the council meeting being on a Wednesday evening. The notice of the question would need to be given before 5 p.m. on the Monday prior to the meeting. And we've said that the notice must state the full wording of the question and should identify to whom it is addressed. So if it's to the leader of the council or it's to a cabinet member. That's the questions from members.
Okay, questions from members. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Go on, I can see you chomping at the bit. Press the button. Councillor Smith.
Right. First of all, may I say I don't agree with it. We've managed quite well for a long number of years with the way we've gone about it, and occasionally it has been abused, but the majority of time I would say it has not been abused in any way by members of the public or by members themselves. And I know we're coming to members of the public later. It hasn't been abused. Having said that, if it does go through, I have a number of comments I'd like to make. First of all, the questions have got to be in writing to the chief executive by 5 p.m. on the Monday. Our group meeting, traditionally, for many years, doesn't meet until Monday night at 6 o'clock. So if we decided to put forward a question, we couldn't do so because we would be out of time. So I think that is a problem for us in the first instance. The agenda doesn't come out till Wednesday, and therefore it's got to be read and gone through. And as I say, our meeting is Monday night. So that is one of the first problems for us. I found the other thing is when you read it down, you're going to get a series of questions, and I understand it's going to be rotated between the two political parties, presumably, or three political parties. It states how long you can actually ask a question. And I think where it says on G, the member to whom the question asked may be, am I on the right one? Hang on. I know. The question shall be put at the meeting and answered without discussion. The member asking the question shall have up to 2 minutes to speak. Would it be better to turn that round and say the member can put his question with 2 minutes to speak and the answer will come? Because it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense as it is. There's a lot of emphasis on 2 minutes, and then a supplementary question is 1 minute. I mean, some people can talk for England a lot more than I can, but I couldn't get a lot out in 1 minute, believe me. And I think 1 minute is, I wrote farcical by the side of it because I think it is. The other thing is, excuse me, when someone is answering a question, if they're answering it orally, are they going to be restricted to how long they can have to speak? Because otherwise you could give an answer that was 15 minutes long and you've got 30 minutes of a period of time. So I think there should be some restriction on how long someone could actually give in the answer. And the other thing is, I think if the questions are written, I don't think there should be any necessity for a member of the leader or the portfolio holders to refuse to answer that question, because they've got it in writing and it has been cleared as a legitimate question, one assumes, and therefore I think they should actually answer the question. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Drawing attention to the fact that the time limit can be extended at the discretion of the mayor, but duly noted your comments on that one. I think it's perhaps just the choice of words on the refuse to answer or decline to answer. So it would be unusual, would it not, to just refuse point blank? Very unusual for anyone to refuse point blank to answer. Anybody else on the committee on this point? I'll go to Councillor Shaw and then Mr. Flynn.
No, just broadening out a little bit from this. What is the point of asking a question? What is the point of a councillor going to full council and asking a question about something that isn't on an item on one of the reports? Presumably to represent his members. It's not just to stir up an argument as might occur. But what you're seeming to do with this process is replace whatever reason there is for doing that with a means of saying we'll reply to written questions on points that are relevant to the council, but we'll only reply if it's less than 2 minutes worth and it's in council. Why can't I do it the week before council or straight after a council meeting? I'm not sure what we're trying to achieve with this. Is it just to stop us asking questions and people having to respond immediately? Or is it to restrict our representation?
Thank you. Sarah?
So just to clarify, in respect of member questions, this is to make the meeting more efficient. What we'd expect if we're all acting in accordance with, the code of conduct, that we have conversations at any time about an area of council business. And if a member has a query or question around a service provision, they come on to us on a daily basis, actually. That forms our workload responding to members. Or if it was with a member of another political party, you would have that conversation or message them prior to the meeting. So this is to try and make the actual council meeting more efficient, because if it's a question that's not on the agenda, you quite rightly just said, you can, we would welcome you ask that at any time, not necessarily in a council meeting and in a public forum. And I suppose with this and the public one, obviously Howard and myself have worked at a few councils. This is quite unique. We've never known this way of asking questions sort of round every member at the end of a meeting. That is very unique. Obviously the council's at will to do whatever it do. You create the rules for your own council, but it's obviously, you know, at the end of an evening, a series of questions around the whole cabinet is quite unusual, and you have to say, you know, the question is that the most efficient use of the council's time, or could that be asked as part of day-to-day operations and business? And that is, you know, usual custom and practice, I'd suggest.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Mr. Flynn.
I understand the need to work towards operational efficiency, but obviously it's to make sure that the satisfaction is towards the public that you know, that's to be served, and to ensure that, you know, they're happy with being able to ask questions and such forth. I think, to go back to the point I raised before with regards to the questions on what's the criteria for the selection of questions to be used within you know, this part of the procedure.
Is this with reference from member questions or public?
For the one that
from members.
It's the one that we're here now. Sorry, I'm getting my words mumbled up.
Okay.
Yes.
So, sorry, can you just have
it was
the selection criteria for the questions?
Yes, selection criteria for the questions, because I know Councillor Smith mentioned a moment ago about you know, the selection process dependent upon, obviously, on the parties to make sure that there's, you know, reasonable.
I would say I've worked in local government for 25 years, and I've never had a written question submitted to council that we've not produced a response to, whether that be a written response to a member. So I would say that would be fairly rare occasion. Obviously, your time constraints on the number of questions, because you would usually allow a 30-minute time period. But if there was an exception to that, obviously with permission through the mayor, that could be extended. But I have never known sort of a question be rejected. There are some criteria, obviously, if it's not part of the council's business. So, for example, if a council question came in and it was a Lancashire County Council duty, for example, or something like that, but we would expect our members would be familiar to what is within the remit of South Ribble Council.
Okay, thanks very much. And I think that response lends itself to the next section as well, doesn't it? Any other comments or questions from members on the committee? Yeah, Cinema. Go on, I'll make you put your on. Any questions from, Councillor Howarth, yeah. And then Councillor Green, and was it Councillor Walton and Councillor Forshaw? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure you're not surprised that I wish to speak to this. I accept that the officers have worked in other authorities and have experience of how other authorities operate. Well, so have certain members of this council, especially those of us who've sat on the county council, and we can tell you exactly how councils shouldn't operate. I can't see any reason for this. It's for the efficiency of running a meeting. This is so cabinet members don't need to be held to account. It's got nothing to do with efficiency. Can I start off with point 14.1? It says questions without notice. When a report of the cabinet or a committee is under consideration or being received at a meeting of the council, a member may, without prior notice, ask a question. Well, my understanding has always been that when a report is presented to the council, we are able to speak to it, not to ask a question that a cabinet member or a chairman may then answer. So the wording of that is almost inviting anybody who wishes to speak to an item to start off by saying, would the chairman agree with me, or would the cabinet member agree with me, or whatever, or alternatively to have somebody shout, what's the question? It doesn't help debate. And as a council, we're here to debate matters, not just ask questions on things, especially when we're not members of either the cabinet who have a decision-making role, or members of committees. In terms of questions to council, a member may ask one question on any matter. That is totally ambiguous. Does that mean a member can only ask one question, or does it mean a member can ask one question on any matter? Because if it means a member can only ask one question, are we seriously saying that the leader of the opposition is restricted to one question on the night when their particular role is leader of the opposition and to challenge the ruling party. I fail to see why we have to put questions in writing and give 2 days notice, because there have been instances, certainly within this council, when when certainly questions I've put have such a gravitas that by giving the leader of the council in particular 2 days notice, that gravitas is completely dissipated, to the extent that I was threatened with being sued for libel because the leader was so flummoxed by the question that was asked, he couldn't answer it. And that will be taken away. And there are occasions when we need that facility to hold the leadership of this council to account. And then to go to G, which has already been mentioned, the member to whom the question is asked may decline to answer. Well, just do away with questions altogether then, because if we have to put all of our questions in writing, spend all that time doing it, get it into the chief executive, just for a member of the cabinet to say, well, actually, don't think I'll bother answering that. And again, as I think Councillor Mrs. Smith has said, 1 minute to ask a supplementary question. The content of the answer might be so involved that you need to ask a supplementary which goes into more than a particular sentence or goes into a number of issues that have been raised in the answer to the question. So this, quite frankly, is poor. It's a diminution of our democratic process. It's watering down our democratic process. And if you want to see how to shut up the opposition and to stop the opposition having a debate or to stop the opposition raising matters of importance, go and watch how County Council have done it for the last 6 years or so. It's been absolutely appalling. And there are other members of this council sitting behind me who will testify to that. We have been, I'm in my 25th year on this council now, and throughout that time, irrespective of who has been the ruling party or who hasn't, we have always been open, democratic, and have been proud of that fact. This is the first step down a rocky road to just removing the ability of the opposition to question the leadership, and it just reduces democratic debate to being an irrelevance. And quite frankly, you should just throw it out.
Thanks for getting off the fence with that one, Councillor Howarth. And I can't remember who is next now. Can you help me out? Councillor Green, thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I could virtually echo what Councillor Howarth has just said, but I'll try and put it in a slightly different way. I would start with the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been a pleasure to serve as a councillor at South Hibble for 22 years. In that time, 12 years we were in control as a Conservative group, 10 years we've been in opposition. Whether we've been in control or in opposition, I think the question process at South Hibble, broadly speaking, has run correctly. People have asked the right questions. People have answered those questions, whether it's whoever's been the leader of the council at the time. We've had a few leaders over those years. We've had several cabinet members. They've tried to answer the questions. There's always been the opportunity to decline to answer if they needed a more detailed response or they wanted to check on some facts, etc. There's always been an opportunity to decline to answer on the evening and to submit a written response later. And that has worked well. So I don't see the need for this to be changed in such a draconian way as is being proposed. Now, with respect to the officers, and I understand exactly where you may be coming from in terms of your experience from other councils, and this point has been put to me over many years by colleagues from other councils. Why do you allow people to ask questions and they don't need to give notice and they can ask supplementary? Well, yes, they can, and it works. South Hibble is a unique council. Let's not forget that. Let's not copy off the worst. Let's not carry out that race to the bottom as has been mentioned, because I've seen it in action and I've seen how members can manipulate this kind of process, and they manipulate it into something which is no longer democracy. It's no longer about holding the administration to account, and it's a sad day. Any administration, that should be the officers and the elected members, should welcome challenge, because it's that scrutiny which allows them to actually deliver better services to the residents of the borough that they represent, in our case, South Ribble. That challenge is healthy in a democracy, and it should be encouraged, not diminished, and it should not be sidelined in such a draconian manner as what we see before us this evening. I mean, the point that Councillor Howarth has made about one question, I read it that way. Does that mean you can answer one question? You can ask one question for the full meeting? That's a nonsense. The supplementaries that are talked about here are far too short, and there'll be a need to expand on that. Equally, there might not be a need for 2 minutes for the original question if it's submitted. But I just find this totally wrong, and I can only plead with people to think about what you are doing, be careful what you wish for, because this will silence democracy in South Ribble, and that is not good for any elected members, and it's certainly not good for the 110,000 residents in the borough that we're all here elected to serve. Please think again and reject this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. And Councillor Walton, was it? Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with everything that's been said by councillors tonight. There is no reason to do this. We are a unique council, and we should be proud of our heritage and what has happened previously. There is no need to change it and water down our democratic processes and our open and transparent council. The members who ask one question, as Councillor Howard said, I am leader of the opposition. I might ask 10 questions during a council meeting. Am I only going to be allowed to ask one question? And it might be longer than 2 minutes, depending on what it is. I might have received an email that morning from a resident wanting me to ask a question concerning something that was happening in my ward or in the council. We need to be able to ask questions as and when. And again, as Councillor Smith said, we do not get any notice of what's on the council agenda till the Tuesday night, Wednesday morning of the week before. We have our group meeting on the Monday evening at 6 o'clock. When do we have chance to have a meeting, discuss what questions we're going to put to the administration, write them down, and then send them through? We can't do that. We are all busy people. We all attend lots of other committee meetings. And if you look at any of our diaries, they're all full Wednesdays, Thursdays, even Fridays sometimes. It's not, we cannot possibly do this. And again, on the 2 minutes to speak, as Councillor Smith said, why should we have only 2 minutes to speak when somebody could give an answer that's 15 minutes? The answers that are given should be timed and to the point, and there should be a time, more than a minute, to put a supplementary question. There is absolutely no need for this to take place. We are proud of how our council works. We are proud of our democracy. We are proud to say to the people of South Ribble, we can ask any questions that we want. You can come along and ask any questions that you want at a council meeting. And I ask you really to think about this, as there is no need for this to take place.
Thank you, Councillor Walton. And Councillor Forshaw.
I just want to put on record also that I'm going to use the word appalled that members of the administration who are on this committee haven't asked a question on this section. I think it says all it needs to say to members of the public. I also take offence on behalf of my residents that some comments made from senior officers of this council earlier on in the segment about you have to ask, if me as a member asking a question representing my residents is inefficient use of council's time. I find that totally offensive on behalf of the electorate. It really is. We talk about the council being in a unique position for being able to ask questions on the night. We're supposed to be an exemplary council. Is that not the point in why we're unique? there's controls, as I know, available by various people of their disposal to ensure compliance with the code of conduct on the night. So we don't need to do pre-recorded questions, pre-written questions to try and control and adhere to the code of conduct. The monitoring officer, the mayor and others have controls on the night to ensure compliance with the code of conduct. I think, speaking as I speak, that I think what it is here is basically a stifling of democracy. We've got an administration that probably knows it won't get elected again. And what they want to do is stifle democracy, stifle me, the opposition, being able to ask it questions. I think the looks on the faces say it all. And I have got a question of clarity as well. And that if I submit a question by the deadline, hypothetically speaking, but have additional information or facts that come to light after the deadline, would I be able to amend the question past the deadline? Thank you.
Just before I ask officers to come back and ask that last question, what I would say, Councillor Forshaw, is that members of the committee will always get an opportunity to speak. So whether or not you feel appalled because people haven't made comments or spoken yet, that's your opinion, but respectfully keep it to yourself. I'll chair the meeting the way I see fit, and everybody on this committee will get the opportunity to speak, come back, and I've extended every opportunity to members attending as well. So let's just keep it measured. Let's just keep it measured and polite. Thank you. On the question of the final part of the question that Councillor Forshaw asked about responses in good time, I think.
So the question, the final question would be, the suggestion is, would be submitted by 5 p.m. on the Monday prior to the meeting. So that would be the final version of the question. So.
Thank you for that. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I no longer wish to prolong this meeting, but there's some interesting points come out, and I obviously don't support what is written in the report, and I do support the suggestions at the moment around this risk table. The asking of questions to cabinet members is a really important part of the process. One important part of the process has already been stopped just a few years ago, because at one stage it was asking questions to committee chairs. The first thing that happened with that and the change of administration was that the questions to committee chairs was cancelled altogether, and it was just questions to cabinet members. I think we should still maintain it, Chair. I won't go over anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to come back to the committee and ask if there are any members on the committee who want to make a comment, ask a question, make a proposal based on the debate and discussion that we've just had. Councillor Unsworth's on Teams. I can't see it from here, but others might be able to. So over to you, Councillor Unsworth.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Chair.
and I believe that so does Councillor Turner. I've got the wrong glasses on. I can't see that far.
Yeah, it was just a point really that if you are given a question,
just bear with us, Councillor Unsworth. We're just trying to sort the technology out so we can hear you. Kath, Councillor Unsworth, are you receiving?
I am. Am you receiving back?
We can't hear you. I'll turn mine off. Right, try again when I've turned my mic off, which I'm going to do now.
Okay, is that better?
It is better. It works. Go for it.
Right, okay. Yeah, I was just going to add a little bit of an extra thing in that when a question is posed in advance, a fuller an answer can be given. Very often, I've noticed in the last few months, people have said, I will get back to you when I find that out, which is not really anything very satisfactory for any residents. It's then not minuted, the outcome of that. Whereas if a question is done in advance, the answer can be sort of compiled in advance as well, and the residents can get the full answer. That's it, really.
Oh, it's all right. Oh, thanks for that comment, Councillor Unsworth. It's a point well made. Okay, and was it Councillor Turner online as well?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair, for letting me speak. I just wanted clarification as well, and forgive me if somebody else has already made this point. But under the proposed rules, does it mean that if I want to ask a cabinet member a question on the night, which I would only do if something had just happened, by the way, I would normally take the courtesy of writing to a cabinet member with a query beforehand. Does that mean that I can only ask one cabinet member one question? I can't ask the other cabinet members another question? That's the new rules. I'm only asked one question and I have to pick which cabinet member I want to ask, even though I might have multiple questions for multiple areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. The current proposed wording is that it's one question, and you would specify if that is for the leader or if it's to a member of the cabinet. That's the current proposal.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, that's
thanks. Thank you for that. Is there anybody else online that I've not seen and can't see? No. Are you indicating Councillor Jackson?
Well, going back to what Councillor Turner has just said, if she had multiple questions, but for different areas, would she then be able to submit them 2 days before to each of the specialist areas? Or would she only have one question for one area?
Yeah, the current proposal is one question. Obviously, of course, she could email members with the queries as we would in day-to-day business. And just to clarify, that is what I meant earlier about we shouldn't have to wait till council. I just meant that we're ready to respond every day. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just something that's just been said, which I think is important, that when you're in opposition, you feel sometimes that you have got to be in a position to put forward some of your residents' concerns, and it's your responsibility to put those concerns into the public domain. And things do occur that you have to respond to fairly quickly. And I'm sure all councillors do. I do. I email most days to the council, to officers, and they respond in the main fairly quickly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got it out into a wider area, a wider audience. That sometimes it needs, that wider audience then can sometimes brings on other people who have the same problem and can get back to you. I find that it sounds very restrictive if you've got a number of questions that you want to ask. Even if we go down this route, you can only ask one. Well, that doesn't seem very democratic. It doesn't seem very open. And I do appreciate that both yourself and Mr. Norris have worked in local government a long time, and you're very experienced. But what has been said this evening about us feeling here in South Ribble that we are just that little, we have to be different because we're next door to Big Brother Preston, and Chorley's been around an awful long time, and we've only been around 50 years, so we're like the new kid on the block. So we've got to be that little bit different. We've got to be able to say to people, we are different, and you can come to us and we will help if we possibly can. And if we need to, we'll shout it from the rooftops if there's something needs to be shouted about. So I think that's why we feel so passionate about it. And we do thank you for all your work, because I'm sure it's been very hard to put all this together. But nevertheless, if you want a proposal this evening, Mr. Chairman, I will happily make one. And my proposal would be that we will remain as the status quo. And I'm not saying that the status quo doesn't need a bit of tweaking, because I think it does. But I think the idea of the way we ask our questions is a bit cumbersome in many ways, you may feel, but I do think it is a very good way that we operate, and the majority of us like it, and we like to hold our portfolio holders to account. So I would propose the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Gleeson.
I just want to clarify a couple of things. We can all still ask questions to any member of council, any member of cabinet. 2 minutes before the meeting, you could send a cabinet member an email if you wanted. They won't get it for that meeting, so they won't have to answer it. So we're not restricted in that way. You can ask anything after the meeting. You can ask anybody anything, anytime. That's the case, isn't it? That's not changing. This is only relevant to the council meeting. Okay. And I'd just like to say that this whole thing's been through a working group. I don't know how long it took to go through the working group. It was a lot of work, and I'm just a bit surprised all the questions are coming up now. And this has been going on. How long ago did this started?
2 years ago, before I was here.
2 years ago. And the questions are only coming up now when we're here to decide it. And I know I haven't been on this committee that long, so maybe it has been discussed before and I've missed it, but just want to say that. Thank you.
I mean, if I could, if you'd just...
Let me press my button. Councillor Smith, let me press my button. Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Any other comments?
I was just going for a bit of clarification. It was actually brought up at a council meeting about 18 months ago by Councillor Foster, and that's where it started from. And yes, it has been discussed at the working group, and yes, there has been a lot of debate about it, and people still feel very passionate about it. And I think you'll find that we have tried to put our points of view over in a reasonable way, and we just feel that what's good, as Councillor Green said, what works, why are you going to fix, why undo it? But leave it alone. It's okay. It works. And we may not be here that much longer anyway. So for the next 2 years, why don't we just leave things alone?
Okay, thanks for those comments, and the comments made about the working group are very well made, and the time that's gone into this, and the work of the officers, and much of the discussion and much of the comments seem to surround the length of time. There's a little bit of confusion around the wording. There's not been much said about when that period of time takes place, and it doesn't sound like there's any opposition to that time being moved to the start of the meeting, but I'm just throwing that in because nobody else has mentioned it. And what I would say is that whatever comes out of this committee, I mean, I'd love it to just go through full council, but it will be a decision for full council as well. So with that, I'll just ask Councillor Smith if she wants to make a proposal again and see if it's seconded, and then we'll deal with it.
I would like to propose that we remain the status quo at council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody want?
I'd like to second that.
Seconded by Councillor Brotherton. So we'll vote on that. All those in favour of the proposal? All those against the proposal? What's the scores on the doors? It's 3-0.
Did you vote yourself, Chair?
I didn't vote myself. I'm just wanting to have a look and see. So all those in favour, I'll take it again. All those in favour? All those in favour? Yeah, 3. All those against? 3. So I do have
So
the
that's 3 and 3, Chair.
Okay, so I'm going to vote against. Let's leave it to full council on this matter. Thank you. Cool. Which takes us on to the last bit. Public participation. This will be straightforward, won't it? Oh.
I think it's possibly a very similar debate. You'll see I wrote the slides in order of, I thought, importance and debate to members. So the suggestion around the public participation is fairly similar to the questions from members, that this would be moved to the start of the meeting following the Mayor's announcements, a maximum time of 30 minutes. Again, the Mayor always has that flexibility. The Mayor has the power to amend time periods and numbers, but questions from the public would be given written notice to the Chief Executive. And I've possibly have made matters more complicated on the slide. I do apologise for that, but it's exactly the same time period. I've described it in a slightly different way on this side. I've said one clear day, but it would be the same application by 5 o'clock on the Monday prior to the council meeting. So that is the current suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw.
Just for my clarification, councillors are not for these purposes members of the public. Freemen of the borough, aldermen presumably are, and they make their speech to a written question at the beginning of the meeting. They can't respond to anything in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Smith.
To be quite honest, Mr. Chairman, I had to laugh when I saw councillors are not regarded as members of the public, because the latter illustration of this was, I said in this meeting, in that case, I'll get up and go over and join the public if I want to ask a question, because it was so unclear what was going on. As I understand it, the members of the public have got 5 minutes throughout the meeting. They're allowed to ask one question. So are they allowed to ask questions of the leader when he is putting the cabinet report to the council? Are they allowed to ask members of the portfolios when they're putting their, or not portfolios, members of scrutiny or governance to the council? Will they be allowed to ask questions then? If not, where is the question a 5-minute question if they've only got one question? Because that is more than the members have got.
Yeah, that's what it states currently.
As I understand it, from what you've just said, we've just voted that the members of this council can have 2 minutes to put a question and 1 minute for a supplementary, and yet you've given the public 5 minutes to put forward a question. Yes? Brilliant.
Just as a slight point of clarity, obviously this was on notice questions from members, so members do have the right to ask, obviously, as Councillor Howard said before, free debate and questions on the agenda items, and that's where it's the different with the public. So this is the questions that aren't on the agenda, just to explain that, whereas the public would be asking questions potentially on both.
Understand? And now we're going to do it the Chorley way. We're going to put it to the beginning of the meeting, like we do at parish councils. Have you ever been to a parish council meeting? Are we going to open the debate to the public as they were at parish council?
Any other questions or comments from members on the committee on this point? Go on then. Members not on the committee. Councillor Howarth and Councillor Green.
Promise you, this is my last contribution now. So, I mean, as has just been said, it's completely contradictory. Members of the public are allowed one question, but they can speak for 5 minutes. It makes no sense whatsoever. What's even more bonkers than that is when you come to participation by the public at meetings of cabinet committees and subcommittees. We've always in this council, as far as I can remember, allowed members of the public to attend committees and speak. Well, now they're not allowed to speak unless they ask a question on notice, which must be relevant to items on the agenda. We had a scrutiny committee not very long ago where we had a speaker from the Environment Agency, we had a speaker from United Utilities, and we had a speaker from the Rivers Trust. And if a member of the public wants to ask them a question, they have to get a crystal ball, listen to what those three people have actually said and presented in the meeting before they've ever said it, so they can put a question in before the meeting takes place. What utter nonsense is that? And we're going to enclose that within our constitution. It's totally and utter madness. It makes no sense whatsoever. They can either come along to committees and ask pertinent questions, and the chair exercises their authority to control that meeting, or they don't. But to suggest that a member of the public has to ask a question in advance on something that somebody hasn't yet said just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and really that needs to be changed.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Did you indicate Councillor Green? I can't. Yes, Councillor Green and Councillor Forshaw.
Thank you again, Chairman. My comments are going to be similar. This has always worked at South Ribble. It's not been abused. I mean, in all the years, it's several years since I remember a member of the public who used to ask perhaps too many questions, and there'll be councillors in the room who will know exactly who that member of the public was. God bless him. But if a member of the public comes and tries to abuse the right to speak and ask questions, as has been said, a chairman of a committee or the mayor, when it's a full council, has the right to control that meeting, and he or she should be controlling that meeting properly to stop that from happening. Other than that, it's never been abused by members of the public. We are here to serve the public. And my caution to us all is if we try to silence the public, beware of what the result will be. That is not healthy for democracy. They currently have a right to come to speak without giving any notice at any meeting. It has worked well for a quarter of a century. There is no reason to suggest that that should not continue to work well for the rest of the time that this council exists, whether that be 2 years or whether it be another 50 years. I would urge that we leave it exactly as it is now, and we rely on the discretion of the mayor and or the chairman of the relevant committee to deal with anybody who tries to abuse the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Forshaw.
So obviously tonight we've heard that some of this work has been 2 years in the making and gone through a working group, and that's what makes some of the proposals all the more shocking. There's one thing trying to stifle debate and questioning from opposition members, but to stifle debate and opposition from members of the public really just shows how low we've become as a council. This is all what I've been talking about all year, about public perception out there. And trust me, for the ones who want to listen about what members of the public think of national government and local government, just listen. This is not a good way to start trying to rebuild trust with the members of the public. Whenever an election comes, I'll be making sure whoever does vote for it tonight and at council will know exactly who the ones are on the side and that are not.
Thank you, Councillor Forshaw. I'm not going to respond on that particular. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Just say, was that last comment a threat?
Well, I'm not going to draw attention to the comments. People can interpret that as a threat, whether it was appropriate or not. I'm not going to go back over that. Councillor Forshaw has raised a concern about the process. I don't think the intention of anybody is to stifle debate and not let the public speak. We heard a presentation from Sarah at the start and where she made the intentions clear about the work of the officers and the work of the working groups, not just the last one, the previous ones. And I can't remember the words that you used, but I think it was along the lines of streamlining, professional. Whatever those words were, it's well intentioned, and it's absolutely fine for people to feel strongly against or for any particular proposals, and that's why we're here. And that is why we're here. We're here, and we've got proportionality, which I've managed to get out at 8:10, and we're trying to debate things in a polite, pleasant way. So, with that, back to this item to wrap up this. Well, we've got a little bit of mopping up, Councillor Walton. Sorry for the little lecture and telling off everybody. It's been a long day.
Can't find it, but where does it say when members of the public will be able to speak and ask questions? I can't find it just offhand in
it's paragraph.
Because it's going to change, is it?
Yeah.
The proposal, is it for it to change?
Are you looking for it in the document?
Yes.
Councillor Walton? Yeah, it's page 182 of the pack, and the little number, the smaller number, the constitution is 171, and it is section 18.
171.
Page 182 of your pack.
Well, that doesn't correspond with mine. Anyway, I'll find it later. So I think that this is a complete erosion of democracy, and the public will see this as trying to silence the residents. We've always had a rule here, as far as I'm aware, for the past 50 years, that all members of the public can attend cabinet and committee meetings. So if a member now of the public turns up to a meeting and wants to ask a question on something that might just occur during the meeting, obviously they can't do that. So who's going to explain to them that they should have asked a question or in writing on the Monday previous? I just think that we're stifling democracy here. We've always had an open door policy at South Ribble. It is what we are, as I said, what we are all about. We are a unique council. Other councils look to us for our the way we work, the way it's done, our openness and transparency. And to me, this just shuts the door on any openness and transparency, because residents should be able to come and ask questions of the administration or anyone who they want at any meeting. And there has never been, very, very rarely, from my experience, anybody abusing it. You might get people who come and ask 2 or 3 questions, but that's all part of what our residents expect, to come to a council meeting and to be able to express their feelings. I just think that this is just going, like the other one with members, it's just a step too far, and we don't need it.
Thanks for that, Councillor Walton. Anybody else who's not spoken and wants to have a go? No? Anybody wants to come back? On the committee I'm talking to now, Councillor Smith.
I just wonder, Mr. Chairman, it may not be possible, but I just wondered whether it is worth having another look at this, particularly in view of the timings, the 5 minutes and the 3 minutes. Whether it's worth just having a second look over it and putting maybe something a little bit more in line with the other proposal of the 3 minutes together. It's just a thought, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thanks for that. What I would say is that we've had some discussion and debate and some proposals and some votes already on some aspects, which has been helpful. So I think what I would say is let's try and deal with this last part on public participation, but then perhaps look at the overall and come back to a suggestion that you might want to make. So on public participation, any other comments or suggestions? No? I'm at your service.
Well, like the last one, I would suggest we go back to the status quo, but it's not going to happen. I know that because you're going to vote it down. But I do think that in view of what has happened this evening and in view of the anomalies that we've now got, I would just wonder whether it is worth just having another look at it, and if necessary, before the 24th, maybe reconvening and just going through it again, because ideally this committee making recommendations to the council would like the thing to go through after all the work, and what it's looking like at this moment, it's going to have a debate down there as well, which won't be to anybody's nobody will be very happy with it. So I'm only trying to be helpful, Mr. Chairman, and just trying to make some progress, that's all.
I think that's a welcome suggestion. I'm not sure practically whether that'll be achievable, but I think we'd all want to avoid revisiting things that have been discussed and debated and proposed at great length again. Were you indicating, Councillor Thomas? And I don't mind it to try and make some progress on this.
Thanks, Chair. Clearly, there are some things in here we're never going to agree on, and I think we just have to accept that. We can have that debate again in full council, but there are clearly some things in here that are just anomalies that have been pointed out tonight that do need clearing up. I would suggest possibly not a full meeting of this committee just to clear up those anomalies, but I'm happy to facilitate something with the chair and maybe the group leaders just to go through those things that have been quite rightly raised as being anomalies within the report. And we just put an amendment to the report that can go to full council to say these things have been noted and addressed. And it just would help progress things through a bit easier, rather than getting the whole committee together again just to discuss things that we all accept are anomalies and probably need to change. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but it's offered. I hope you'll take it in the spirit in which it's offered.
Yeah, thanks very much. So thanks for that suggestion, following on and dovetailing with what Councillor Smith has suggested. So how to move that forward? It sounds like a sensible suggestion. And I'll frame that as a proposal, a form of words to revisit the concerns and I'm not even going to try and say it. I've given up now. I've said too many words today that have been raised this evening. And chair, group leaders, does that feel like the right thing? Well, we'll vote on it as a committee. I'm looking round. All those in favour of revisiting those areas that need to be looked at, and that means that people can raise any of those anomalies and in good time ahead of meeting, ahead of full council, so that an amendment can be put or amendments can be put. It's in your hands. If you want to comment or vote on that, that would be helpful.
I think it's a good decision. The leaders get together and discuss these anomalies, because there have been quite a few that have come up tonight that, and I'll go back to, I know I said it's been 2 years, but it's still some things in there, still people are still surprised at them, which it is what it is, but I would welcome the chance to discuss it and iron out the anomalies.
Councillor Smith.
I agree with the Councillor Gleeson. I would be happy to discuss them again, because I think with the best will in the world, and I know Councillor Hart and Councillor Walton have taken a very keen interest in this, but we have, as a committee, worked very hard on this. And I feel like there might just be something that just doesn't feel right that they don't pick up on like we would. I think it needs another looking at. I really do. After all this time, I still think it's not. Let's put it this way. After 2 years of working at this, we want to get it right as best we can, that it will work for the council. And that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to be difficult or awkward here. We just want it to work. We have to leave it with you, Mr. Chairman. You're in charge. So if you would prefer to meet with the leaders, then that so be it. And we will just have to put it in their hands.
Councillor Shaw.
So it sounds a sensible way to go, but if it seems more sensible, perhaps that the leaders could delegate somebody that they feel was appropriate to go to that meeting. So if Councillor Mrs. Smith was to be more appropriate in their group's view, to go and talk to the leader of this subject with yourself and whoever from your group and my group similarly, wouldn't that work? It's just anyway, because we know what's going to happen. If this goes straight to council at the moment, okay, we lose the vote, but there's an awful lot's going to come out in a public meeting that maybe you could clean off some of the nastiness to start with.
Sounds sensible. Howard, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, just to go back to one of the independent foundations of you as a committee, your duty in relation to constitutional changes under consideration is independent assurance of any proposals that are going forward to the council. As we know, it's for the council to adopt or change constitution in large scale ways. So this is part of you getting to a point where you can, although there were some things you'll never agree on from the sound of it, getting those things that are kind of anomalous into an order in which you can have a straightforward debate and a focused debate when you come to the full council. The proposal is on the table, but of course it will be a matter for the committee to approve that proposal of using the leaders as some other mechanism to actually look at the matter on your behalf. Because what you'll essentially be doing is giving that element of your role to the leaders to refine the matter prior to it going before council.
Thanks, Howard. That's helpful. I think. So, Councillor Shaw.
Sorry, the recommendations that are in the agenda item are for council to approve the updated constitution, however they decide to do that, to delegate authority to the monitoring officer, deputy monitoring officer, deputy chief executive to make any minor amendments to the constitution as appropriate. All you got to do is to flex that a bit, that delegation back to a management group who can come up with at least fewer of the anomalies before we hit council.
Councillor Smith. Sorry, did I not sound enthusiastic? Councillor Smith.
Yes. To be quite honest, Chair, I think we should go back to the committee to look at again. This committee has worked hard on it for quite a while now, on and off. I have to say more off than on, but nevertheless, there are a few other things that the committee could do as part of just sorting this little bit out. We've got quite a lot of amendments to go on. Some of the words need clarifying. The committee could clarify those words, or when the words have been clarified, the committee could clarify that, and those words could be right before they actually go to a council meeting. So it could be a good meeting to sort out this issue, plus sorting out the words for the other meetings. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm trying not to laugh out loud, but I'm not at you, Councillor Smith, just at the way this is going. Did you want to come back in again, Councillor Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to prolong this meeting. We're all getting very tired. But maybe not a full committee, maybe just an informal working group would help, that we've had before, where we meet for an hour and just sit round and just without having to take minutes and everything, and we can just express how we feel. And usually we managed in the past to have come to a reasonable consensus. And it's just a suggestion I'm making, that's all.
Okay, another sensible suggestion. Officers, comments. I mean, working groups. Do we need to worry about proportionality and subgroups? And no, I know it's a good suggestion. It's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of items today which are making things consistent, aren't they? The formatting, wording amendments that actually the whole governance committee have agreed on and come to a unanimous decision on. So I think that's something that we could make fairly quickly and get that document out to you, whether you want to come together formally to sort of approve that and say you've given that your assurance. And I think that helps then focus the debate at full council to those areas which there's fundamental disagreement on, rather than get all the little bits which can be tidied up fairly easily. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So given the importance, the things that have been identified, a special working group is set up to meet with these important matters so that they can be brought to full council and dealt with in that way. Sounds like a plan. Is that okay? Right. Thank you very much. It's only been 2.5 hours nearly. Really lengthy, long time to sit and debate. It is important. It's really, really important. And I think I was chair the last time this started. And so I'm picking this baton back up again. And hopefully we can get it over the line. And yeah, democracy will work its way through. No stifling. Thanks very much, everyone.
Sorry, Chair, just one point. I was just thinking, if you said a matter for the working group, I wondered if it's possible that we could have a phone call or a meeting in advance so I could prepare an amended version for the working group, because otherwise we're eating into time before council, aren't we? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.